Hey, how you doing? My name is Deranta.
And I'm Kris.
And welcome to Pulse Comix. A little bit about myself. I am a avid nerd. Been a nerd since 6. Comic books, movies, anime, cartoons, all the above. I'm just the biggest nerd you ever seen in your life. But I can't beat you up.
I don't know about that, man. I think I might be able to take you there.
Really?
I've been a nerd a long time myself, and before, even before I think that we knew that word, I was into the Batman, and I loved the Spider-Man comics were my favorite ones to read, and I always loved Star Trek and all kinds of science fiction. So yeah, I mean, I think we're both huge nerds. I don't know if one of us is a heavier weight than the other.
Geekdom, that's what they call it nowadays.
Something, yeah, exactly.
It's chic to be geek.
It is, it is.
And you know what? Today we are joined by a new friend of ours, Dallas.
Hey, I'm Dallas Howell. I'm a creative director at HLN, CNN Sister Network, and I too have been a geek since birth, maybe before, in utero geek.
Okay.
Hey, I have a whole room dedicated to Wonder Woman, so
Oh, wow.
I've got real street cred.
We need
You
to see a
do.
picture of that too.
Oh, I'll provide
Oh, okay.
many pictures.
Okay. All right, well, the thing is that everybody thinks, we live in a society today where comics are just all over the place. We got
Sure.
comic book movies here, we got comic book TV shows here. But there was a time, a long
In a galaxy
long,
far, far away.
that too, where these things were pretty rare. And
Right. I remember you used to buy comic books off of a rack that spun around at the drugstore.
Yep.
A what store?
Yeah.
A convenience store. It's
What?
yeah, where
They didn't go online and get this stuff?
no, not on their iPads. No.
Oh, okay, so today we're gonna actually go back to the 60s, starting off with Batman.
Yeah.
The original Batman, the Adam West Batman.
The seminal Batman, really. I mean, to which all other Batmen are compared.
The tights.
I mean, if you're gonna fight crime, you need to do it in your underwear.
Oh,
Well, it confuses the bad guys, for one.
yeah.
Sure.
They don't really want to tussle with you.
Right,
And
right.
if they do, well, then that's a
That's just
completely
an added
different
bonus.
story.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Okay, thinking back to the show, do you think it was? Well, of course. Do you think it was campy?
I mean, I think that goes without saying that, yes, it was very campy.
It was intentionally campy. There's no way around it. I mean, the Batman comic was not nearly that campy at the time. They took the elements that was happening at the time in the comic book, where it was a little lighter and not as dark as it was when it first premiered, and they just turned it up to 11.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was. I mean, Bam, Pow, Biff.
I loved those graphics, though.
Oh yeah.
That was the best part for me, was the Bam, Pow, Biff.
Oh yeah, I mean it was. The thing is, some people don't like campy superhero or Batman. They say that's not the real Batman. But I think everyone can agree that if you're going to do a campy superhero TV show, that was the pinnacle. Nothing has ever topped it. Only spoofs of the campiness have ever come close.
Right. And I think one of the craziest things about it was the fact that if you go back to like watching those episodes, and it was funny too. It was like they never ever discussed his parents, and that was that's such a main thing with Batman is like,
Because it's kind
my
of down.
parents died. It was never brought up at all during the TV show. Period.
It's too dark.
It was
Yeah,
like,
I
I'm
mean,
rich.
it's the '60s, and it's a show for children. So
Was it really for children?
I'm going to go with yes.
Well, I think it was both, because I think it was like just like Looney Tunes. There was 2 levels you could read these things.
Okay.
And I
Sure.
think adults enjoyed it as a kid. I watched it in reruns. I wasn't alive in the '60s. I wasn't. I was alive in the early '70s, so I'm not far off. But as a kid, I watched it and I did not think of it as campy. But I think it was actually a comedy, just did not have a laugh track.
Right.
So I, as a kid, I mean, I just thought it was that Batmobile. That was what just. I mean,
Yeah.
I loved cars. I would go to sleep as a toddler holding a Matchbox car in each hand.
Sure.
And when that Batmobile came around, and I saw that, It was the most amazing thing. I
Look
wanted
at
one.
this
In fact, I got one. I have a picture of myself with the little pedal car, a Batmobile, and I'm total Fred Flintstoning it. I've picked it up and I'm walking it up the stairs at my grandmother's house because I wanted to take it everywhere.
I am so
with me.
jealous.
And just this year, I was shooting a spoof for work about Batman versus Superman, and I had one of the classic Batmobiles in the shoot, and it pulled up to my house, and I thought I was going to burst into tears.
I would
because
definitely have.
It was just like one of those things. Like never thought this would happen. That a Batmobile would drive up to my house, and I would get to sit in it and ride in it. It was super cool. I mean, that Batmobile. Look at this thing. All the Batmobiles are cool.
Yes.
I mean, they are all cool.
Yeah.
But you can line them up. All the current modern ones that look like tanks, that look like insects that are armored, and this thing drives up, and
That's the
all
one.
eyes
Yeah.
turn to this.
Yep.
It stands the test of time.
Yeah, this was built off of the a Lincoln concept car, the Futura, and they took it and modified it for the Bat.
It's got bat fins.
It's the most amazing thing ever. I mean, anytime you have parachutes on the back of your car to slow you down, you know you're a badass.
Now, also during that little time period, because of the success of the TV show, it actually spawned a movie.
Yes, which I think a lot of people get confused and think it was just an episode, but there was an actual movie with Adam West and Burt Ward. Mm-hmm. Well, that was the one with when they had the shark repellent, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, I'm just going to tell you my two childhood fears that have lasted into my adult years. My mother took me to see Jaws when I was 3. That was the year she didn't win Mother of the Year. Okay. Terrified me. I didn't want to sit on the toilet because there was water in it. The shag carpet looked too much like water.
Yeah.
Terrified. Still will not go to the beach. And Bigfoot. So we'll get to that later.
Yes,
but
we will.
When Batman is he's on the ladder hanging from the Batmobile and the Batcopter, and he's slowly sinking into the water. I am freaking out as a child because I'm like, no, you can't touch the water because a shark will get you. And what happened? A shark got him.
Right.
Shark got him.
It just verified your fears.
Yes, absolutely. I was just like,
But then you learned you could get bat repellent and put it on your shark repellent and put it on your bat belt. So
don't think I didn't tell my mom to go to the TG&Y and get me some shark repellent.
The show was just okay. Now, one of the other things I thought was really cool about the show was the fact that they went from using the iconic comic book characters like Joker and Riddler, Penguin, then they started to kind of go off and just create like their own characters. Like, I think it was one called like Egghead. And
sure, I remember
King Tut.
Egghead, and didn't they come up with Mr. Freeze too?
I can't remember. I think Freeze was in the comic.
I don't know. Honestly, I didn't read the early Batman comics.
Well, I mean, what's interesting is the TV show, just like with the Wonder Woman TV show, we'll talk about that later. Those became how the mainstream identified these characters. Like they went from the comic book to television, and then all of a sudden, television. That was how they were. I mean, identified immediately, to 90% of the population. So that became the main medium in which people were seeing these characters. And so any good TV show is going to expand upon the source material. So them creating new characters is a great idea. How successful they were is another question.
Yeah. Egghead, I don't think really.
Probably
it didn't
not.
translate well to the comics too well.
I don't think so.
I mean, but he was creepy looking. I mean, that misshapen head. It's always upsetting when you see somebody who's deformed.
I like the King Tut one. I thought that was different.
Yeah.
That
King
was
Tut
different.
was.
It didn't translate
King
well.
Tut was hot for a while there after they found the tomb.
For a little bit.
There's a little bit of whitewashing there.
Just a
little bit.
A little bit.
It's still going on today.
That's a whole different subject too.
Yeah. Well, that'll be episode 2.
All right, so I think that, and it was funny too. I remember reading this book. I met Burt Ward like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and he had came out with a book. There was like a memoir of his time doing the show, and I got him sign my book and everything else, and the book was like really, like him and Adam West were like some freaks. Like, yeah,
Really?
with the costumes on, like. It's a children's show though, but yeah, it's yeah.
I don't want to go there.
Yeah, read the
You're
book.
messing with my childhood. And
Yeah.
It's upsetting. I'm not reading that book.
It's different.
Listen, don't ever underestimate the power of satin tights.
Yeah. In the 60s.
You never know, ladies. Do you like satin tights? I don't know. I kind of thought Batman was sort of hot.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see
I was
that.
5.
Well,
I was 5, okay?
Well, look. The best part, about the entire thing for me, if I was going to really watch the entire episode, is you see the the Bat car come in the beginning. And if I saw a Batgirl's motorcycle coming too, I'm like,
right.
I'm there.
Oh, yeah.
I'm watching the entire episode. Batgirl.
yeah.
I mean, she was the best. I mean, look, can you imagine sitting there getting ready in the morning, brushing your teeth, and you can make the wall spin, and then there's all your gear
man.
and
Right
your
there.
motorcycle, like right there next
Right
to
there.
where you powder
Gassed
your nose,
up and everything.
gone. You just throw that red wig on, and you're ready to take on the day.
Yeah, Batgirl continues to be awesome.
Oh yeah.
Let's talk about this for a second. 3 Catwomen and Batgirl,
And all the Catwomen were hot.
all of them,
Eartha
and
Kitt.
Eartha Kitt,
Julie
groundbreaking. Yeah,
Julie Newmar.
yeah, Julie Newmar. Well, statuesque, we know that. But what's interesting is with Batman and Catwoman, and then also with Eartha Kitt, and then Star Trek with
Right,
Uhura.
right.
I mean, these shows were showing us the future. They were groundbreaking. In fact, almost all of the comic book shows we're going to talk about were groundbreaking in some way, and that's interesting that science fiction predicts the future. People have to look ahead and see what will society be like, and they get to show it in a fantasy type situation, but it puts the seed in people's heads that an African American lady can be Catwoman.
Right.
Sure.
That she can be on the bridge of a ship.
Wasn't she like fourth in command, Uhura?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, I don't know for sure, but in my mind, she was.
Yeah.
She was first in command.
Yeah.
she was in charge of that bridge.
Michelle
if you
Nichols
ask me, yes.
and I met her at Dragon Con a couple of years ago, and she was just so sweet.
She's a
And she had
nice
the
lady.
softest hands in the world.
She got grandma hands.
She does have grandma hands.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, as far as the Batman show goes, I felt like that when I was a child, that was one of my favorite shows. That and Star Trek, the reruns, we watched those all the time. I'm only just the tiniest bit older than you guys, so I was, a toddler in the 60s and don't really recall that, but
But do you remember, as a kid, I'd flip through TV Guide. That was how
Sure.
we found out when
What's that?
television shows.
That's
were-
right.
It's
That's
an
right.
iPad.
What is this?
Early generation iPad.
yeah.
Oh my God! What is this paper?
Yes, it's
Oh, wow.
paper.
It's like a printed iPhone,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
but you can't call anybody on it.
Wow.
You can try.
Well, I
Just
mean-
doesn't get very good reception. But what was interesting is I would flip through and find whenever Batman was coming on, because sometimes that movie would not come on like a schedule.
Right.
And I would always see the Avengers, and I would get so excited because I was going to see Thor and Captain America,
oh.
and then it was the British
Yeah.
Avengers.
Yeah.
What a jip.
Yeah.
I know.
So disappointing.
That's a different subject for another day too. With that one.
Right. So the next really iconic series that I remember that was kind of superhero related was the $6 Million Man, and even more importantly, the Bionic Woman, because Jamie Summers was my heartthrob. Y'all remember those shows?
I remember a little bit of it. I remember watching it was like the TV movies NBC used to do and everything else. I remember
Sure.
seeing the return of the $6 Million Man. I'm like, who is this guy? Why is he $6 million? So then I started finding out more about the older show and stuff. I'm like, oh, okay, it's actually kind of cool. Bionics, okay.
Yeah, Bionics.
I think it was the first show that I saw live. Batman was in reruns for me. But when this was the first event television that I can remember. So I love the $6 Million Man. I mean, gosh, what would he be with inflation now? $6 billion,
billion?
$60 billion
Something
man.
like that. I don't know. Yeah, $6 million is just not that much anymore. I'm sure Cyborg costs more than that.
Right. What's so interesting about it is that I remember you know, why is it that when someone is running super fast, it's in slow motion? Yeah, no.
That was great.
It was great. Oh, it
Loved
was
it.
awesome. And I mean, the sound effects alone were just off the chain on that. I mean, like he had his eye, which would go,
The little laser too.
and then whenever they would throw somebody or he would be thrown, you would have that bomb sound, like,
Yeah.
and, which was so bizarre. Like,
I like the jump thing he would do.
oh yeah,
Where he would just go up and just jump up against the wall and just, it was great.
Yeah, but Jamie Summers could stop a car with her foot. She did that. And she was a teacher. Do you remember she would go into class and just write everything on the board super, super fast, and then she would turn it around?
Now I will, yeah, I will say that even as a kid, I kept thinking like, okay, she's got a bionic arm or he's got a bionic arm, and they're super strong, but it's connected to flesh and blood. So like
Right.
when your arm rip
Are
off,
we
you know,
going to
like
start talking about plot holes? Because that's
Yeah,
a
I mean,
different series.
there's a lot of plot holes in it. But
Okay, now what was the thing? I'm trying to remember it now. Now, I think each one of them were in the accident. I think Steve was in
he was an astronaut.
astronaut, and then Jamie, did she fall out of like a helicopter or something?
Parachuting
Parachute?
accident. Yes.
Yeah,
Now,
that's right.
who was damaged more? I'm assuming he was, right?
But they were damaged in different ways.
Yeah.
Like she got a bionic ear where he got the bionic eye.
Okay.
Yeah, they both had an arm and they both had legs, bionic
Yeah.
legs,
Okay.
so they could run in slow motion on the beach together.
Right.
Yeah, and then of course, you know, in her open, she showed her strength by crushing a tennis ball.
Right.
So if Billie Jean King ever went rogue, you know who to call.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That was a great show though, because it was so low budget. Like when they would. Okay, I said earlier I was terrified of Bigfoot growing up, and you look back at that Sasquatch costume, which was just like, okay, let's get the tallest guy we can, and we're gonna get, you know, ash makeup on his face, just make him look really dirty, and then a gorilla costume from the neck down. But those eyes, he had like white blue eyes. I was terrified. That scared me to death.
I mean, I never at any point thought that Bigfoot was going to be a match for Steve Austin. So, you know.
Now, wasn't it like a crossover episode?
I think they were both
Yeah.
on it, weren't they?
Yeah.
And what about the bionic dog? Was he on that one?
Oh gosh,
Oh,
now
Bionic
that's a blast.
It was
Did,
Bionic Dog.
They had
Did she have a
bionic
German
dog.
Shepherd?
Yeah, it
Was
was a German Shepherd
Yeah.
that also made the sound when it ran. I don't know what else it could do.
now, can you imagine? Can you imagine brushing your teeth with those sound effects all the time? No, 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 no. Combing your hair, no, 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 no. It's like, did they hear the sound effects? Because that would get really old really
Yeah.
quick. Stirring a pot, no, 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 no. I just have to use this arm.
If you had
I have to use the
bionic
regular
hearing
arm.
and you ran that fast, how deafening that would be.
Okay, again with the plot holes.
Oh, you're right. What am I thinking?
60s, 70s. Come on now.
You're right. You're right. You're right.
But
well,
the thing is, it was, you know, it wasn't purposely campy. It was, and it was superhero-esque. You know, they were in like a tracksuit. That was like the closest thing they ever got to a costume.
which
But-
I liked about them. They seemed much more relatable. Like they might be real people.
Right. Yeah, they could go out and make appearances and you were like, oh wow, it's the Bionic Woman. But, you know, Burt Ward and would have to put
Adam
on the little
West, yeah.
mask to pull that off.
Right.
Which they did. They would go to appearances, which is, hey,
They still do.
yeah,
They go to Dragon Con all the time. I've seen them there.
but not in costume.
Well,
We don't want to see that.
nobody wants to see them in tights.
Yeah,
That's
you
right.
do. Go for it. Come on. Age discrimination.
Okay, well, you can go see them in tights. I'm going to
I'll
pass
go
on
see
that.
it. Come on. I'll hang out with Adam West.
But you know, the interesting thing about, I mean, the $6 Million Man was a great show, but the really interesting thing was the Bionic Woman, because you have to remember, in a very short period of time, Bionic Woman, Wonder Woman, and Charlie's Angels, not superheroes, but here were the sort of the first shows that had female leads, where they carried the show. They weren't, even though Bionic Woman was a spinoff of $6 Million Man, they weren't. They at the time, people didn't think that women could carry a show, especially carry an action show. There was Mary Tyler Moore, which that was groundbreaking for its
And
time.
Bewitched.
And but Bewitched was an ensemble, but she was, and like I Dream of Jeannie, they were.
Yeah, they had powers, but they were still deferential to the men.
But
Yeah.
the thing about Bionic Woman is the fact that she was a hero, she was a female, and she was not overly sexualized. I think that made it really, really good. You know?
I thought that made her that much more attractive.
Right. You know?
Yeah, like compared to like Charlie's Angels,
Right.
It was like Charlie's Angels knew that there was a sex appeal
Right.
to these, and Jamie Summers looked like she might have run a brush through her hair
Right.
before going on camera. I mean, well, it was Lindsay Wagner, but she was a very sort of natural. She was the everyday woman.
The girl down the street
Yeah, that you could
with bionics
with a bionic, yes,
and a dog.
who could jump up into a tree to escape Sasquatch.
Yeah.
Hey, I wish I could, because I knew Sasquatch was going to come for me one day. I
I'm
wish
pretty sure if
Bonnie could.
Bigfoot chases me, I can jump into a tree. I never done it before, but
Yeah, but you know what's weird in that episode, the one thing I remember that just is so bizarre now that I think about it is I think it was Sandy Duncan was in it,
Oh wow.
and they could teleport around. Yeah,
don't
yeah.
remember that.
Just Google it. It's
YouTube.
It's interesting.
yeah, I'll have to
YouTube.
check that
Yeah,
out.
and there's like they would watch Sasquatch fight them through this little sort of polygon shaped monitor. It was very
Okay.
strange. Like, I mean, there was like a lot of weird elements in these shows that when you go back, you're like,
I'm still tripping off you saying Sandy Duncan. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
I haven't heard
What
that
was
name
Peter
in a long
Pan doing
time.
there?
or at least it looked like her. And
might
if I
have been
remember
her.
correctly, I have a bad memory, so I could be
I
completely
don't know.
wrong.
You'll have to cut a clip of it in.
Wow. So I mean, it's I think if I remember this right, with the Bionic Man, the show was canceled first, right? And then after that, the Bionic Woman went on for like 2 more seasons or something like that.
I think his started like a season before hers, and then she may have gone a season longer after he was done. I don't really remember.
I don't remember. I do remember that I always put these shows in the late 70s, but I think the Bionic Man was earlier, like in the sort of early 70s. But I always think of the Bionic Woman as more like 75, 76, 77. But that's just, I mean, off the top of my head, with no.
That sounds about right.
Yeah,
We'll go with
I
that.
just wanted-
Sounds good to me.
We've said it on camera now, so
it's true. Gotta be
Yeah,
true.
it's on the internet. It's got to be the case.
There will be experts who will fact check us.
Did you guys do the thing where you would run in slow motion and make the sound effect in your yard?
I still do that.
So from the Bionic Woman, which she was, very important to me growing up as a little girl, because you were talking about, power to the women. And then we had Linda Carter as Wonder Woman.
I mean, come on, like visual perfection. As like, what's interesting about Wonder Woman to me? I mean, many things. I'm a huge Wonder Woman fan. I have a room dedicated to Wonder Woman. But what was really interesting about that is it was, Batman was cool and all, but they created an aesthetic for the show that was inspired by the comic book. But it was different. When Linda Carter walked out as Wonder Woman, it was like someone just pulled Wonder Woman out of the pages of the comic book. Like I can't imagine them finding anyone that looks more like what she's supposed to look like than
I
Linda
agree.
Carter. It was almost like, how did that happen? I don't. It was literally. It's like, I would put it this way. It's like Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark.
Right.
It was like she was meant to be the visual live action personification of Wonder Woman.
And that's why it still stands up today. I mean, people still, even though, was it
Gal Gadot.
even though she's Wonder Woman now, but people still refer to Linda Carter as like
Oh,
Wonder
absolutely.
Woman. you know?
Absolutely. Every Wonder Woman from now on will always be compared to her.
Right.
Yeah, which is really not fair. I mean, come on.
No, it's not fair to anyone to be compared to her.
Yeah, she's 60-something years old now and
Looks
still
great.
looks fantastic.
Looks great.
And what was interesting is, like, Batman was intentionally campy in the best possible way.
Mm-hmm.
We look back at Wonder Woman's show and people say, oh, it was campy. But it was not intentionally campy. We're looking
No.
through the lens of what very low budget 70s, no good special effects sort of
Right.
things look to us now. But if you watch Linda Carter playing Wonder Woman, she took it very seriously.
Absolutely.
She's very serious tone.
There was she was not playing it for a joke.
Right.
And she was, it's like, Wonder Woman's gone through this thing where in the 90s they thought they had to make to have women superheroes be taken seriously, they had to be sort of super tough, you know.
Right, they had to be much harder than the men.
Yeah, they had to actually take on these very sort of masculine aggression sort of attributes to be taken seriously. And it affected Wonder Woman for a while there. But what most people kind of forget is that Wonder Woman's mission was to be, or her personality really, is to be loving and to be caring and to not go straight into a fight. She always sort of gives people the opportunity to correct themselves before she has to correct them.
She's supposed to be an ambassador for peace.
Yes,
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
and so at her core, a lot of people say she's a warrior. And I'm like, yeah, she's a warrior, but before that, she is a nice person. She's a
Yes.
really good person who just so happens to be able to kick your ass.
So she's really similar to Superman in that way.
Yeah, like and that's what, you know, I think Wonder Woman, and then as we talk about the Superman movie, it got to the core of the goodness of these characters.
Right.
And yeah, we look back and you're like, wow, she could pick up the end of a car, but then she would get into a fight with a person and they would
knock her out.
And they would roll down the lawn, you know, and it's sort of, so they didn't have the ability to really show off the powers that she had in that era of a 70s television show.
Well, they did show off her power to spin around and change clothes.
Well, you know, that was invented for the television show.
It was awesome.
It was great.
She'd be like, oh, I need to buy scuba gear now.
But do you know how that happened, which is interesting, is they were trying to figure out how they could have her change. And Linda Carter said, well, you know, I know how to, I can spin, because I guess she had taken ballet classes. And they're like, okay, do that.
Perfect.
And it sort of really became a really iconic way to transition. I don't know if they'll pull it off in the movie or
I'm
not.
sure they'll probably do like a little hint.
Yeah, they'll give us an Easter egg. I bet they will.
Well, they did that in the last episode of Supergirl, in which Linda Carter played the president.
Yep.
Supergirl, she was fighting this character that like threw basically napalm on her,
Yeah.
and to get the fire out, she spun.
Yep.
It was sort of cool. It was a little nod to that.
Awesome.
Now you all are forgetting one of the best things was Wonder Woman's invisible jet.
How do you remember where you parked it?
What she hit, does like a little clicker and it beeps.
Oh, see, I didn't know.
Yeah. You know what?
But sometimes Wonder Woman can fly, but other times she needs an invisible jet. Is that just when she has her friends along?
I think it's like when she's Ubering. She wants to carry people and make a little extra cash.
Sure,
On the TV show, I don't think they showed her actually flying though.
Well, that was
Except for like in the jet though.
Yeah, I think for special effects
Right.
purposes, like her being able to fly, and that's why a lot of mainstream people don't think Wonder Woman can fly, because they never saw her do it in the 70s television
Right.
show. And that's but yeah, she has her invisible jet, but she can also fly, which I'm curious in the movie. I haven't really seen her flying, so I'm wondering how they're going to.
I don't think they did. I don't think they
It looks
did
more like she leaps.
Yeah,
I've seen her do some really long
yeah.
leaps. Who knows? I mean, I can't wait for the movie. I'm very excited about
Well,
that.
Wow.
Yeah, but that trailer is something else. I'm actually pleased. And one thing I'm pleased about is circling back to the TV show on that is listening to Gal Gadot and Patty Jenkins, the director, talk about Wonder Woman. Is they're always talking about her core of her personality and how nice and loving of a person she is. Because I think that's sort of separate. Like when we were kids and we were watching these superheroes, they were good people.
Right.
You know, something happened in the late 80s and 90s
You know
where
what?
grim and gritty
I
things
think
started.
it's the Ripley effect.
Well, she was great. You know, I think that was great. And she was let's put it this way. I like to see when women are portrayed in different avenues where they have to be super tough and they can be that, but we don't have to have all of the female superheroes have to be these so tough that you can't relate to them.
I agree. And I mean, do you think that started with the storyline where she kills a man in the comic books?
You know, I think it started with Xena, actually.
Oh,
because Xena was basically a kind of a copy of Wonder Woman. They were both Amazon princesses, And Xena was a great show, and I love Xena for what she is. But then people started feeling like, oh, well, Wonder Woman was old school, and to have her be taken seriously, maybe we need to give her a sword, and she needs to be, you know, going into battles, epic battles, and that's all great. But you know, at some point, you got to realize that, well, Xena is good because she's Xena. Wonder Woman is good because she's Wonder Woman. Let's just let these characters, you know, shine for, you know, who they are. And when you have 75 years of a character, it makes you want to, you know, you've got a lot to choose from and a lot of things to sort of like cut away. But if a character lasts for 75 years, there's
a long time. Right.
There's something right about that character.
It's resonating with people.
Right. Did you spin around as a kid?
Yeah, I usually fell, but sure. I mean, it never changed my clothes.
No,
No, not even in my jammies. I don't know.
You know, one of the cool things I like about was the fact of you always had back then like the damsel in distress, and the damsel in distress of every single Wonder Woman episode was Steve Trevor.
Yeah.
The dude.
You know, and it's cool how they just flipped it back around and just made it where, you know, hey, a woman can be the hero. The woman can actually save the man. And,
Yeah,
you know,
he did need a lot of saving.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did.
And the great thing about it was that was revolutionary for the time.
Right.
This was so different, but because it was in a fantasy form,
It was
didn't,
safe.
Yeah, it was sort of safe. It didn't like ruffle any feathers of, you know, it didn't, you know, step on, you know, fragile, you know, male identity at the time, but it set, you know, it started planting seeds for things to come later.
Subtle.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, these tricky television execs, you know. But that was actually the core of her from the very beginning when she was introduced in 1945. I mean, she has a very interesting history with the suffragettes of the time, and it wasn't just inspired by them. I mean, the creator and his wife and their third, the other lady who lived with them.
Their special
Whole
friend.
different story.
They have a very interesting history of female empowerment going on, and Wonder Woman is just the interesting sort of byproduct of their life. I mean, it was almost by
Like
accident.
a child.
Yeah,
Like their child. Actually.
yeah.
And I love her
many
lasso of truth. I love that she can always get to the truth. I think that's an important part about her character.
And isn't that the scariest thing? Somebody could come at me with a sword, and I'd be like, "Oh, I can dodge this." But if you make me tell the truth,
I mean, I think we're
the
all,
things you would learn.
I think we're all kind of afraid of that.
And her weapons, I mean, you know, things have happened where she carries swords now and all. That's great. I think she's, you know, should be versed in all of these different weapons. But her bracelets and her lasso, they're defensive weapons. They're non-lethal weapons.
Right.
And that the best writers would always put her in a situation where she would try to diffuse the course that was headed towards violence. But of course, it's action adventure. Right. You want to see some, you know.
The bad guys are always going to make that mistake.
Yeah.
You're not going to learn
because they're stupid.
Well, yeah.
That's why they're bad guys.
Exactly.
Wasn't there one episode where she took her tiara off and she used it like as a boomerang?
Oh yeah, more than one episode.
That's her offensive weapon, I think.
Yeah.
If she's got one, until she comes up with swords later.
Yeah. I mean, there's a great meme with her, Linda Carter, touching her tiara, and it says, "Don't make me take my tiara off."
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, she threw it and like stopped some guy that was paddling away in a raft and like punched a hole in it.
Sure, like you do.
Caught it and put it back on her head. I mean, like that's, you know, when your fashion accessories are also multifunctional.
That's always a good thing.
That's always a good thing.
All right, so going from Wonder Woman to now going to the Incredible Hulk TV show with Lou Ferrigno. Just, wow.
Just amazing. You know, it's funny, I had an ex-girlfriend who told me that as a child she couldn't watch that show because every time he would get angry, she would get so upset.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling the same way, like, why are you making him so mad?
Yeah, and it was like, and the thing is, you didn't know whether or not he was going to actually help somebody or he was going to help beat them up.
Right?
It would freak me out.
And those eyes.
Oh, God.
It's anytime where it was American Werewolf in London or that Sasquatch from the Bionic Woman, anytime they would turn to the camera and they would have those like real light color eyes. Oh, that was real freaky to me. That would you knew something was bad.
Right.
Was about to go down.
Right.
And the one thing that the Incredible Hulk taught us, and Rocky Horror Picture Show, that if you have a flat tire in a rainstorm, just sit in your car. Nothing good comes out of trying to change that
There you
tire or walking up to that castle. You just sit in your car and listen to the radio until the dawn comes up, and then you go look for some help.
I know one of the biggest things about the show with me was like, you know, I would watch it, you know, and then at the end, I forgot also too, it was, it was David Banner on the TV show.
Yes.
But in the comic book, it was
Yes.
Bruce Banner.
Bruce Banner.
Yes.
And at the end of the episode, you know, he's like, you know, okay, I saved these people, I got my backpack, I'm walking off.
Walk down the street.
And then they would play the most depressing music.
The Lonely Man.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I know, that is the saddest song. I can't hear that today without tearing up a little bit. Like, oh, he has to leave again. He's
It is.
all alone.
It's beautiful though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really
Oh,
like
yeah.
I have. My husband has a grand piano, and sometimes I'll say, play the Incredible Hulk music, or play Voyager music from Star Trek, because it's such beautiful music.
Right.
Like, and it evokes such emotion. Because one of the things that was really cool is, I'm sure this is not the first, but it was the first that I remember. Is up until then, superhero movies were superhero movies. These were people out to do good. The Incredible Hulk brought a pathos to the character, whereas he didn't want to be the Hulk. It happened. He got his powers through tragedy.
Right.
Right.
You know,
it was an accident.
It was.
And what he really wanted was not to have this problem anymore.
He wanted to be
Right.
left alone.
Exactly.
And he even went down the path of trying to figure out, you know, what was going on with people who had super strength, because his wife was killed in a car wreck, right? And he couldn't save her. And so, man, this is what a bummer this show was.
Yeah.
And you know, and then just occasionally a big old green guy would show up and rip his shirt off, and you're like, oh, okay. Well,
Which
some
by then
information.
you were just happy to see him because at least he's doing something. You know, he's not sad.
And then here's the other thing. You got all this stuff going on, and then you have a damn FBI agent coming after you every single episode.
Sure.
Because he thinks you killed somebody, whatever. So it's like, you know, you're the Incredible Hulk, you have no money really, you're on the run, and you got the FBI after you.
Yeah, so it's like The Fugitive, but green.
Yeah.
with wardrobe issues. I mean, can you imagine?
Okay, with
can you
this-
imagine? I've got nowhere to stay. I've got no job. I turned into a green rage machine,
keep losing
and
clothes.
my clothes keep falling off
Yes,
of me.
but once he comes back to being Bill Bixby again, he puts the same clothes back on that were ripped up when he turned into the Hulk, which I know, no plot holes, but still, I mean, I thought that was another superpower of his to make his clothes come back together like that.
He was an excellent seamstress. when he finally found a place to stay, he was sewing.
He would bust out the shirts, he would bust out of those leather cowboy boots,
Yeah.
everything. So it's just, I don't know. I think one of the other things too I thought was really cool about the show was that Luke Ferrigno, being someone with, I don't want to say a disability, but special needs, him being able to have a starring role in something like that, and to still be able to thrive today off of that role, he said that was very, very big for him at the time, because nobody else would cast him in anything, you know, and for them to take a shot on him in that.
I know he's proud of that work. I
Yeah.
know he is.
Yeah.
Because I've seen him at Dragon Con, and he's always having so much
Oh,
fun.
yeah.
He's just like a kid in a candy store. He
Yeah,
really
well,
is.
a lot of the comic book shows that we've talked about, you could watch them on a very surface level. You know, there was depth to almost all of them, but you had to sort of dig deep to sort of figure out the
Maybe
themes.
not Batman and Robin.
Well, maybe not, you know, but you had to dig deep to sort of see the themes of like Wonder Woman, like, you know, someone in a new land who doesn't understand the ways of the world. And all this. But the Incredible Hulk, that was like, okay, this is what it would really be like. It was almost X-Men like. It was almost mutant like the powers are a curse.
Right, and and everybody can relate to feeling like the outsider. Everybody can relate to that.
And everybody can relate to having something inside of them that you're about to pop off on somebody.
Right,
So a lot of these
yes.
kids, a lot of these geek kids, like I was, and I think you guys have said you were, you know, we felt different. You know, we were
Yes.
sort of picked on. We would read comic books as an escape, where
Right.
you know, you would see these characters who were different, but they were glorified. They were doing great
Right.
things, and you felt that inside. Like I just want to be able to be myself. And a lot of times we were picked on because of it, or we felt different. And so we felt like there was something inside of us that was different, whether people outside of it saw it or not.
And there is that rage.
Yes.
There is, when you feel like you're excluded from things. So I can understand why my ex-girlfriend was so upset by him getting angry in the show, because he would lose control.
And the thing is, that's the same rage that really was in all of us. Especially growing up, being, nerds, geeks, whatever.
Well, just being little people who aren't in charge.
Yeah.
I remember this bully in school. He was picking on me, and he pulled a line from there. He goes, "You won't like me when I'm angry." I was like, "I don't like you now." And then I judo flipped him, Charles Angel style, and he never picked on me again.
Ah.
Right, that's all it takes. That's all it takes. Sometimes.
That's right. Now, if I only had that bionic sound effect when I'd done it, it would have been like the greatest moment of my life.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, one of the things I thought that was kind of a little different from the show is like if you look at, like with the Batman show we talked about earlier, like they used iconic characters from the comic books, or they made up some characters for Batman and Robin to go up against. With the Woman to Woman TV show, they never touched any of her comic book character villains. Same thing with the Incredible Hulk TV show. He never went up against any of his villains from the comic books.
That's called budget, or lack of budget. And I think that was probably the motivating factor behind a lot of that, because I think the Batman was a very expensive show to make.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
it
those
was.
sets alone were just insane. But that is an interesting point. Like, how would they have pulled off the cheetah for Wonder Woman? How would they have pulled off the Abomination for, the Hulk? The Hulk, I guess you get young Arnold Schwarzenegger. And
I mean, but the Hulk TV show was really a different character from the
Yes.
comic book, one in a different way from Wonder Woman and Batman.
and a different origin too.
Yeah, I mean, he was a reimagining of that character. I think.
I think I normally am like, stick to the source material, That's what's going to make it best. I think that The Incredible Hulk was the best example of them sticking to it enough, but changing what they needed to change for television, and it's still working. It really brought it down to, you took the gamma bomb out of the situation. You took, him trying to save Rick out of the situation. Rick Jones. Like, why'd you drive your Jeep out onto the test range? There's always somebody causing problems. And they really brought it into a level that actually created more emotional depth.
More depth to the character, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know anybody who watched The Incredible Hulk who didn't feel an emotional attachment to them.
And it completely, if my memory serves, it influenced the comic book later down the line, where you start realizing in the comic book that Bruce Banner is, fighting a multiple personality disorder type situation, and that he has rage issues from being abused as a child, which you didn't know. Like, that was not part of the history, as far as I can remember, in the 70s Hulk comic books. But I think from the success of the television show, they thought, what, backstory, having some reason why the powers affected the gamma radiation, and the powers affected him the way they do, makes a character more interesting. And so it was an interesting situation where I think that show really did positively influence the character in the comic book.
Right, which is actually like a reverse type thing.
Give it a little subtext that it didn't have before. Yeah.
Right.
I agree.
Seriousness for sure.
Yeah. It was a heavy show for being, an action superhero kind of thing.
Yeah, and the Hulk was scary. He was scary because he was always, screaming at the camera, like got right in the camera and screaming. As a kid, that was kind of freaky. But even though
you don't know what he's going to do. He's going to pick up a car and throw it at you. You don't know.
Well, he was going to bust down that cardboard door.
Well, yeah, that was
somebody was going to go flying in the air.
Yeah, was he that strong though?
No. He would take somebody and fling them through the air.
Yeah. There was a lot. That was the theme of the 70s. A superhero would always throw somebody a little bit further than they could actually, whatever they could run and bounce off of a little trampoline. That's how far they would throw them.
It was just a really sad character all the way through.
Yeah.
Even to the very, very end. Spoilers if you haven't seen it. He dies at the very end in the death of the Incredible Hulk. Mm-hmm. And it's only thing he really wanted, his very last words was he just wanted peace. And death was his peace. And it's like you look at the entire show and the animated movies and everything else. Not animated movies, but the live action movies on television. It's like, wow, it's just sad all the way around.
Let's end on an up note there.
So that's how we do it here.
All right, you guys have a great day.
There you go, Pulse Comix. Get you depressed.
That dusty green wig.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, hey, guys, that's it. I want to thank our guest, Dallas, for coming through.
Yes,
Yeah.
thanks so much. And thanks to all you guys for watching. And don't forget to like and subscribe and do all the social media
Below.
things for us.
I'm going to do that right now.
Do it right now. There you go.
Right on.
No.
Are you gonna just comment first?
No.
What? You're just going to comment first.
Yes, absolutely. That's all I'd ever do.
All right, so look, we'll see you next time. My name is Deranta.
And I'm Kris.
Pulse Comix.
Right on.